I'm Greg DePalma, and you're listening to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leand on the Prime Sports Radio Network. On today's show, we've talked about it for as long as we've had a show, and it's finally going to happen. The Davis Cup is making major changes, and we'll let you know how and why. Well, Roger Federer turns number one again, but what do we make of Serena? The Davis Cup, Roger, Serena, and more as Prime Sports Tennis on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Thursday, the 1st of March, 2018. Thanks again for tuning in to Prime Sports Tennis with PSN tennis editor and former top 15 player in the world, Andrea Leand. And Andrea, I was usually, we talk about these things, these changes that we want to have made in sports for the sports that we love. And 95% of the time they never happen. And when they do happen, it takes like forever. So when I saw that the changes had finally come down to the Davis Cup, many of the type of changes that we had actually talked about and wanted, and it actually is happening, I was kind of surprised and very happy to be surprised about it.
Well, the ITF has covered all the bases in its latest proposal, most significantly the financial one with Cosmos coming in, billions of dollars now you're talking about, Greg. And that's not just for Davis Cup. The ITF funds so many different levels of tennis and the entree levels into where the young generation can get into the game and then obviously proceed hopefully one day onto the Pro Tour. So there's so many different grassroots initiatives that the ITF takes. So this is money that goes to many different platforms, and there's a lot more in consideration in the big picture when you're talking about the financial viability of the ITF. But obviously this is going to help. But what we're seeing now is the current players now, Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal, are now circling the wagons and coming out and supporting this Davis Cup proposal. It has been heavily criticized in the last week by former players, by veterans, and now, of course, it's tough, Greg. Change is always tough. It's never easy, especially in a niche game that has been so reliant and so fiercely protective of its traditions. And Davis Cup holds so many memories for so many, as does Fed Cup for the women. So it's understandable. But you know what, Greg? This is a new time where we have the players playing longer, the points are longer, the matches are more physically demanding, the schedule's more demanding, and the players are feeling it physically. They're not able to play this full schedule. And the Davis Cup and Fed Cup have suffered. And you just cannot allow to see it teeter out without doing something. And this is why Dave Haggerty and the ITF have really stepped forward and come up with an even more significant proposal than they did last year. And it is understandable that it's meeting with a lot of apprehension by people. Look, I love tradition. I remember going and covering Jim Courier down in Brazil when the U.S. played there. And I've missed many a Thanksgiving covering the U.S. Davis Cup team in Sweden and other places because it was that important to me and that important to tennis in this country to have coverage. But you have to get to a point where you have to look at what is important today to the key constituents, and that is the current players and the fans. And the fans are not getting to see enough of Davis Cup, and the players are not getting to play enough of it. So how do you rectify that? This proposal does it. It's a one-week event. They're saying it may be in Singapore. It might go to Asia first. But it's at the end of the year. They'll have 18 teams, 16, of course, and 2, I guess, named by the ITF.
Okay.
And it's played out throughout the whole week.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm not going to go into all the details here, but the significant thing is the money is there. The current players are supporting it. And yes, it has some, look, nothing's ever perfect, and I'm sure there'll be some wrinkles to be ironed out, but this is a start.
Well, what is the main pushback by anybody that is pushing back on this, besides tradition, is the main pushback the fact that, as we talked about previously, that because they won't be able to go to different locations and all these other countries that are able to have, Davis Cup. Is that like the main pushback? It's got to be more than just tradition.
No, the main pushback is that usually it's the home ties, where it's one country versus another, and you have the home team and the away team, and the home country can get involved. It's never taken off in the United States as it, in the current times as it has overseas. I've been to Europe, I've been to South America, I've been to Eastern Europe. And I can tell you, when you sit in the stands there, the crowd is so emphatic and so unbelievably overwrought with the Davis Cup play and patriotic for their players. You literally can feel the stands shaking. Was in Brazil when literally the stands started to come apart. And Courier was playing. He needed an IV after the match. And it was unbelievable. And I was in Madrid when the same thing happened with the women in Fed Cup. They were playing Spain. Again, the stands literally started to shake and fall apart. That's how excited the crowd was. So that is the element that you may miss because it's going to be in one location. Yeah. It's going to be very similar to a World Cup.
Yeah. And that's something that we've talked about. Look, that is definitely the best case scenario. It would also be nice. Now, I don't know if this is something that they can come up with. Maybe this is something that 5 or 10 years after the Davis Cup has got this going and they've ironed out all the kinks and everybody realizes how great it is. Then maybe do you think it's something that the Fed Cup would adopt, and maybe it could be Fed Cup, Davis Cup almost like in the same week? Or, is that even something that could be possible?
Well, it's funny you say that because Judy Murray, of course, Andy's mother, tweeted out. Barbara Rittner, head of the German women's Fed Cup team, tweeted out. A number of women now tweeted out, what about Fed Cup? What about us? Because, of course, last year the women were balking. Oh, we don't want to give up our off season. We don't want to have to worry about this and that in our off season. Now, all of a sudden, they're seeing what the guys are getting with Davis Cup and all the opportunity and the financial benefits and everything else. And the other thing is it gives the players back some weeks. If you were going to get to the final of Davis Cup, you have 4 weeks. Now it's just 1 week. So you get 3 weeks back. The tour gets weeks back. Yeah. So they can sometimes perhaps schedule better for the players, not make it so, one part of the globe 1 week, the next part the next week. Maybe they can work some things out to make the scheduling better for the players. So sure, the women are absolutely a little bit fertile ground now for Dave Haggerty, I think, in this respect, and that they want to see now what he's going to do with Fed Cup. I think we have to remember also the fan, Greg. The fan, it's great when we went to Asheville. I'm going to Nashville, rhyme. I'm going to be going to Nashville in the beginning of April for the Davis Cup, U.S. Davis Cup tie against Belgium. And I hope John Isner and David Goffin show up. And I look forward to seeing hopefully Jack Sock as well, representing the United States. But, when you have the Davis Cup in 1 week and you have all your stars there, or stars there, when the fan is looking to turn into the TV, who are they going to turn into, Greg? Are they going to turn into, I can see David Goffin and Isner, and I also can see Roger playing Nishikori.
Sure.
And you have all these different options that 1 week, whereas you have the individual matches, and if the top players don't show up, it's a little bit of a deficit for everyone, from the promoter to the fan to the team.
Yep.
So I think that this solves that as well. I mean, it's nice when you have these crowds at Davis Cup in Nashville, and then the Fed Cup in Nashville where you had 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people there. But you have to look at this proposal as perhaps attracting a much broader worldwide audience. And I think if you make it the spectacle that it sounds like it's going to be, with even half your stars in the game, you're going to reach far more fans, far more kids, and far more excitement for the sport.
All right, another big story that came about since the last time we spoke, and we knew it was kind of a foregone conclusion it would happen, and it did, and that is that Roger just continues to win and then became number 1 in the world again. So, wow, unreal, huh?
Well, it's unreal. Of course, I'm on the court now, Greg. I'm not even going to tell you I'm training a little bit. I'm practicing a little bit with a few of the players, enjoying that. But the question we keep getting from the juniors and the parents and the young rookies is, how does Roger do it? How can he do it at 36? Becomes the oldest number 1, surpasses Agassi for that record now, another record for him, 36 years of age. And how, though, is he able to maintain this level? Now he's number 1 in the world. And with Rafa pulling out in Acapulco this week, Greg, he now has the cushion he wanted. He did not play Dubai as he was thinking of doing to add a little bit more points to that number 1 ranking. Instead, Rafa pulled out this week. He has his cushion going into the next 2 weeks of Indian Wells, Miami, where he won back-to-back on the Sunshine Double. But, how does he do it? Well, there's so many different – it's so interesting to really look at how Roger's been able to persevere. And I look at the balance, Greg. I look at the team. I look at the balance. Every member of that team, from Ivan Lubicic to Luti to Paganini, they're all 2 feet in. They have one responsibility and one responsibility at all. They wear one hat. And when you wear one hat and you're completely devoted to your part of the teamwork, it's going to have to work. And it's been a long-term process where they've invested in each other. And that goes for the off-court, too, with Federer. He has the same finance guys. He has the same manager, Tony Gotzik. Of course, Mirka, he says, is his backbone, and his family as well. So this is a guy who has a very balanced life on and off court, and he also is able to have that type of foundation to then take the risk he needs. And it was a big risk. When he came back from the 6 months off, he did not let anyone see a glimpse of him until he was ready to go, to a week before he was ready to leave. So the preparation he puts in is so meticulous, and he, to some degree, is very, very calculating. But he goes also to the top people for the best advice. He goes to Bill Gates, who he'll be playing with in an exhibition on March 5th in San Francisco. Or Northern Cal rather, and he goes to these top guys, these really genius guys, and he listens. He listens to Anna Wintour about his image and how to project the right image off court. He listens to Bill Gates. He has the top guys in his team, and he listens. And I think that is why he has been able to maintain the longevity that he has.
Last year when we were talking about Roger's comeback, and we completely understood that number one was not even something that was on his mind. It was just about getting back, winning some more Grand Slams. When he came into this season a lot closer to number one, did he state number one as a goal or something that was definitely on his mind? And now that he has number one, is that something that he's saying to himself, I want this. I want to hold on to this the rest of the year?
Well, I think he is saying that to himself because, quite frankly, with Novak, we don't know if Novak's going to play Indian Wells or not. It's still up in the air. Andy Murray's out apparently until the grass court season, having just had hip surgery. Stan Wawrinka has pulled out of Indian Wells in Miami with that knee injury, so he's out. So the top guys that were around him about 3 or 4 years ago aren't there anymore, except for Rafa, who also now has this hip injury. So I think, he definitely wants it, Greg. He definitely wants to stay there. He's definitely going to do his best. But I think that was not the mindset. I think the mindset was to play his best tennis and to get himself in the best shape. And to that degree, I don't think that, unlike Andy, who, as we saw, blew out his body to become number one, played an Ironman schedule of every tournament week in, week out to become number one a couple years ago, Roger did not do that. He could have done it at the end of last year, but he decided, you know what, I'm not blowing out my body. I'm not going to hurt myself. He pulled out a Bercy. And he did not go for that number one. He said, I will be patient, and I'm going to wait, and it will come to me if I play good tennis. And that is the mindset. It's really enjoying the process, loving playing the game, and doing it for all the right reasons and all the right way. And I think this is the biggest message we can send out to juniors and their parents. You can win doing it the right way. Roger has done the training the right way. He has approached his career with a great balance and done it the right way. And this is where, the good guys can finish number one.
All right. Speaking of number one, not that she's number one right now. I'm not sure if Serena Williams is ever going to be number one again. But then again, we talked about that probably a year and a half ago with Roger, so you never know. But Serena is going to be playing at Indian Wells. We talked about her performance at Fed Cup, which was basically just the doubles and a losing effort. But still, it was an opportunity for her to get her feet wet and get back into the swing of things. But we just haven't seen her. Now she goes to Indian Wells. What do you think about what's going on with her plans so far this year?
Well, she said she's had to readjust her expectations. She has said that also in her new Lincoln car commercial, her automobile commercial. She says, I've had to readjust my expectations. That she got to Asheville, she saw where it was a reality check, saw what she needed to do. This has been the toughest 3 weeks of her tennis career, I think, because she's really done the gritty work. There's just no way around it. There are no shortcuts for getting back to where she wants to be. She's got to do the hard work. But the interesting thing is we're seeing the ability, Greg. Of course, she has Jermir Jenkins there, and she's doing backflips. She's doing cartwheels. It's not just the sprints. And he's seeing they're trying to keep up with her going, this is quite something. This is how talented this woman is, even at her age, and having just had a baby 6 months ago. And happy birthday to Olympia, who's 6 months old today. But even at her age, she's sitting there, not just sprinting on the grass. She's doing backflips, somersaults, everything else. So the agility is there, the athleticism athleticism is still there. But we now see the billboards lining the Route 10 into Palm Springs that her husband Alexis has put up, saying the GMOAT, the greatest mother of all time. And you have 4 huge billboards. So Olympia and Alexis, her husband, are certainly on the team, and they're supporting her and they're encouraging her now. And I think that is going to help her. But as far as where she is, everyone says, well, should she be playing Indian Wells? She can play anything she wants. She can play anything she wants. But it's the expectation of how she will do that we were kind of had the knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
Would it be, better for her to wait till Charleston and start slowly with a smaller field and weaker field? Absolutely. But that's not what Serena's all about. She loves the big occasions. She loves the big stage. She wants to play Indian Wells, and she has killed herself the last 3 weeks to get into great shape. And as we've said before, when Serena puts her, gets determined and gets focused, there's no one more efficient and effective than Serena in getting herself back into shape. She looks a lot better. She looks match tough. She looks hungry. She looks driven, and she's going to play the tie-break 10 event in Madison Square Garden on March 5th, the same night that Roger's playing his exhibition with Jack Stock and Bill Gates and Savannah Guthrie out on the West Coast. But it'll be interesting to see how she does in this tie-break 10 event. It's obviously tiebreakers. It's 8 women's field. It's be a very good test for her because she's then flying straight out to Palm Springs. She has an event at La Quinta Resort, the Desert Smash event, which is to benefit her charity. And then it'll be Indian Wells. So I think, she can play, but what are we going to be expecting? Probably in the same realm as, Vika Azarenka is going to be in the draw for the first time. She's there with her son Leo. She does not have the physicality anymore. She does not have the muscular frame that she used to have. And so it'll be interesting to see if she has the power. Serena, we know, has the power, has the athleticism. It's just really a question of how she's going to move and how she's going to, again, adjust her expectations so that she looks at this as a process of one step at a time.
All right. So, I know the next time we talk next week, it's going to be before the draw comes out or right after the draw comes out. And then we're going to be able to take a look at who Serena is going to play and it is interesting. So basically with some of the withdrawals you've been talking about on the men's side with some of these other events, including Stan already at Indian Wells, it's possible that we're gonna see a loaded women's field, but the men's field is still going to be without maybe 5 or 6 top players, right?
Well, I think we're going to have to wait and see if Rafa plays. I think that's the one everyone's looking to. Kyrgios has also pulled out of a number of events. He has been out for quite a while now. Of course, he did very well there last year. And so we'll look for him. Jack Stock has had a disappointing beginning to 2018. He has been ranked in the top 10, but he's going to have to start, showing some results and some better form and more confidence. Sam Querrey lost in Acapulco. He was the defending champion this week. So a lot of Americans have a lot of opportunity. They have, Isner, Querrey, and Stock have to look at Kevin Anderson at 8 in the world and say, hey, if he can do it, why can't I?
Sure.
They're very similar in style and game. So there's opportunity for these guys to really break into the top 10 and have that distinction in their career resume. But for the women, I think it's going to be the early rounds, Greg. I think we're going to have Vika unseeded, Serena's unseeded, Maria at 41 in the world is unseeded probably. And so we're going to have a lot of big matches on that opening day. And there's no weekend off for these girls who are usually in the top 10 in the seedings. They're going to have to play from the get-go. And to me, I think for Serena, it's about I think the victory is walking onto court. And the victory is competing and trying to, get her wherewithal on the court. This is much different than taking the fall off. We've seen in the past where Serena has taken the fall off after the U.S. Open and come back and had no problem finding her rhythm and sync. But this time it's different. As she has said, she's gone through a menagerie of medical problems from the delivery and ensuing. And so she has had to overcome a lot of medical issues to even get there. Of course, she now says that she almost died in that delivery. So very dramatic. And that had to take something out of her emotionally too, Greg. So I think this is as much of an emotional challenge as it is a physical one for her. But to me, just getting back on court and playing the matches is going to be a victory in itself at Indian Wells. I still think we're looking really for her to peak sometime around Wimbledon.
All right. Well, we are going to be on the air, though, next week before Indian Wells gets started. And it starts next Thursday. So we're going to be on the air either Tuesday or Wednesday, possibly Wednesday, but definitely after the draw. We'll take a look at the draw. We'll go over the odds, and we'll get your analysis on the draws. And, of course, some of your predictions as well. And looking forward to doing that. So, Andrea, thanks a lot. Enjoy your tennis. And I know you're going to be traveling a lot over the next week. So, happy traveling. And we look forward to previewing Indian Wells next week.
Well, I'm excited about it. Yep, I'm on my way to New York on Monday, and right from there out to Indian Wells, and we're going to be at every event. So it's going to be great fun. And as you said, lots of excitement and lots of questions to be answered.
Thanks, Andrea. Talk to you next week. All right, that's Andrea Leand, and that's going to do it here for another edition of Prime Sports Tennis. Don't forget to check out our on-demand shows following every broadcast on our website, or, of course, you can go to iTunes or YouTube under Prime Sports Network, and check back with us next week when we preview Indian Wells here on Prime Sports Tennis on the Prime Sports Radio Network.